What is up, guys? Teddy Cornwell here. Welcome to the Underdog Talk, the world's most underrated podcast on earth. But there's something about the Underdog. But today, the Underdog, we have one of the GOATs of the UFC, born and raised in Tom's River, New Jersey. This gentleman is nicknamed The Answer for a reason. The one and only Mr. Frankie Edgar. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Teddy. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I'm not gonna lie, I fuck heavy with the nickname The Answer. I also heard your nickname is Rocky. Is that after Rocky Balboa?
I don't know. Some people maybe compare me to him, but I don't know if that's a real nickname.
Well, I like that, Mr. Balboa, and obviously, thank you for joining the podcast. And I want to look back at your career because you really had an interesting career, not only being just becoming a Hall of Famer. Congratulations on that as well. But really starting out in that wrestling side, obviously going to Clarendon University of Pennsylvania, after a successful high school career, where to me it's just like you leveled up from high school to college, and obviously qualified for the nationals all 4 years there. Now, I want to know can you tell us your journey from wrestling to MMA and how your background in collegiate wrestling, shaped your fighting style?
Yeah, well, I got into MMA right after college. So my senior year of college, that's when the Ultimate Fighter show first was on Spike, and that's when it kind of piqued my interest. Decided, maybe I'm going to give this a shot. So graduated college. I found a place to train, and 5 fights later, I'm in the UFC. So yeah, wrestling has a great way of getting guys ready, just because. Obviously, the training, wrestling is such a big part of the mixed martial arts, skills that you need. But wrestling in college, it helps you, teaches you, how to schedule, how to train properly, how to eat right, time management. You also have to worry about your studies. So I think wrestling in college especially is a great prep for a fight career.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, you talk about going to the Ultimate Fighter, and you are the second Ultimate Fighter champion we've had on the podcast. Shout out, Mr. Usman. But what's interesting to me is, at first, you didn't get on the Ultimate Fighter. That's correct, right? And then they call you back. What were your emotions of not getting invited the first time and then getting that call saying, "Hey, we want you back on the show"?
Well, no, I didn't get on the show. I got right into the UFC. So
Oh.
I didn't get picked. And I was upset. I thought, not upset, but I was just a little. I was disappointed. I thought I had a good shot to get on. I did well in the draft and whatnot. So then, but I think 4 weeks later, 4 or 5 weeks later, I got a call from somebody from the UFC. I think Joe Silva at the time, and he wanted to know if I wanted to take a short notice fight against Tyson Griffin. So that's how I pretty much made it into the UFC.
Wow, and maybe you did I my first standalone fight that really stands out to me about you was the BJ Penn fight, obviously at UFC 112, baby. And what were the emotions going in against obviously a legend like BJ Penn as your first big fight?
Yeah, BJ was the man at the time. Obviously, someone I looked up to. I was such a fan of BJ. In those years, before Medium, in the cage, and yeah, he had like aura about him. I remember doing the press tour out in Abu Dhabi, and fans were all over him. Him and Anderson were like superstars. So yeah, it was. It took some convincing myself that I could beat this guy and could be in there with him.
And beat him you did. What was it like? Obviously a lot of people don't get this feeling in the UFC. What was that feeling of winning a title like, Frankie? Did you enjoy the moment, or were you like, already focused on defending that belt?
You try to enjoy the moment. It's always tough. That's one thing that I think every athlete would say is that they wish they could enjoy the moment more. But when you're in the middle of the battle, in the middle of the heat, it's tough to take a step back and see where you're at. But at least the fight after, I definitely enjoyed it, or the night after rather, and all that stuff. But you got to get back in. When you're that title, you feel like you get a target on your back as soon as you win that title. So I was motivated to kind of keep it and defend it. But yeah, I definitely enjoy the night out in Abu Dhabi. That's for sure.
I can only imagine. And obviously you and BJ Penn had such a good, rivalry going in the UFC. What was your favorite fight you had in the UFC? Obviously, to me, it was that Grayson Maynard fourth round connection. That was dirty as hell, man. But what was your favorite fight in your UFC career?
Yeah, winning the belt is always up there just because, that's reaching the pinnacle of sport. Always my goal from day one. So that'll always have a special place in my heart. But like you mentioned too, the Maynard fight, part three. The third one we had, emphatic finish with the knockout. So yeah, that was a pretty cool way to finish that trilogy.
Yeah, that was a dirty connection. And what now, turning around, what was the hardest fight you've ever gone into? Obviously, you've been in three different divisions. So which was the hardest fight in any of the divisions you've been in?
It's tough to pick one. I've definitely fought the who's who. Obviously Max Holloway, Jose Aldo, Ben Henderson was always those guys were all tough guys. Even Sandhagen down at 35, and Cheeto, those guys are all pretty good. So it was cool. I got to get in there with some of the best across three weight classes.
Yeah, and obviously you were in three weight classes: lightweight, featherweight, and obviously bantamweight. How do you manage the physical and technical adjustments required when moving between these divisions? Because it is really hard to move between these divisions, even defend get a title, and obviously what you did. I mean, what was that like doing these weight cuts?
Yeah, well, I didn't cut any weight for lightweight at all. Minimal weight for featherweight, but once I got to bantamweight, I was definitely cutting a decent amount of weight. But no more than what the normal guys do nowadays. So, but yeah, you just got to be disciplined. I never really took too much time away from this fight, away from the gym. So in between fights, I'm always training. Even if I never have a fight booked, I was in the gym training. So I think that helps a lot with consistency, keep me in there, and just keeping you fresh.
Yeah, and obviously you killed it all three divisions. But what was the reason for switching classes? Did you just want new challenges, and were you tired of just being a champion?
Well, I lost the title twice to Ben Henderson. Really close fights. Thought the last one definitely went my way, but I knew having two losses in a row to the champion, it would probably take a while to get back to a title shot. So, in my thinking, I thought going down to 45. My coaches were kind of begging me to go down for a long time, so I decided, maybe I'll get a title shot going down here. And kind of even 35, that was kind of the same token. Everyone's getting bigger, everyone's cutting more weight. I felt I could have made 35, so I was cutting minimum weight at 45, and I thought possibly, again, like whenever I was in the sport, I wanted to be the best and want to always fight for the title. So I thought 35 maybe get a shot at it. Obviously didn't pan out, but that was the objective.
Yeah, and I think one thing that stands out to me is just how mentally prepared you are for fights, and you are one of the most mentally ready fighters that I've really researched on it. And how do you mentally prepare for a fight, especially when facing the list of tough opponents and legends you have faced?
I think the best way to prepare mentally is prepare physically is the best and you can. Uh, I would never wanted any regrets when I was done with a fight camp, or even after a fight rather. So I wanted to make sure I trained right, I ate right, I slept right, I had the right spirituality, I had the right mental process, so I could say, win, lose or draw. I did everything in my power to walk away to win, and if it didn't go my way, it's just the way it goes. And but I have no regrets.
Yeah, and that's what makes a champion, putting it all on the line and not holding back. Did you treat every opponent with the same regard, or were you going? So every camp was you're going your hardest, obviously.
Yeah, you have to. You got to train. You can't. I mean, you train to opponents, obviously, because you worry about what they do and this and that. But in the big scheme of thing, from your first fight to your last fight, you're really training yourself. Training, the areas that you need to work on, and or maybe you want to train your strengths or stuff like that. You got to fight your style, I think, more so than the other guy's style.
Yeah, 100%. Now, life after retirement. I mean, have you ever thought about going into like a bare knuckle boxing or like something like that? Has that ever crossed your mind, or are you done with the combat sports?
I think I'm done, but you never know. I train all the time still.
Yeah,
I still get after it, and I'll definitely grapple and I mess around with the guys. Bare knuckle, I don't know if the money's right, obviously, but I'll tell you this, I'm not seeking it out. So if someone wanted to seek me out and offer me something, then I would entertain it. But I'm not really seeking it out right now.
Yeah, because we just had David Feldman, president and founder of it, and that thing is growing, man. I'm
It
telling you.
is, man. It's super popular, very cool. He seems like he's very passionate about it, the guy, and now you got Conor McGregor backing it, so yeah.
And speaking of McGregor, obviously he's coming back for 303. I mean, what do you think of him returning? And I mean, are you allowed to say who you have versus him versus Chandler?
Yeah, you just never know what you're gonna get with Connor. Obviously he had that hiatus with the broken leg and the movies and all this. So he's obviously very, very talented, very dangerous guy. He's definitely, I'm sure he still has a lot of power in his left hand. Um, Him and Chandler, I think it's a fight. I think Connor could possibly catch Chandler coming in because Chandler wants to throw. He loves throwing, but I think if it goes long, the longer it goes, Chandler I think is going to favor him, and especially if he ever uses his wrestling, which I don't know. I don't know if he's gonna because he likes to put on those entertaining fights.
They both do. They both do. And obviously now that you're out of the UFC, looking at the UFC from kind of that spectator view, do you see the UFC going in the right direction, Frankie?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. They still put on the biggest fights. The best guys still fight each other. I think the ESPN deal is coming up soon. So I don't know what platform will end up on. I mean, sports and TV is like such a different world than it was a few years ago. So I don't know if it'll be on a streaming platform or something like that. But this it's only getting bigger and bigger.
And obviously, shout out Dana White for just empowering it and making it one of the biggest sports in the world. I mean, shout out Dana White for that, obviously. And obviously, you just got into the 2024 Hall of Fame for the UFC. What were the emotions of getting inducted into such a prestigious, honor? What were the emotions flowing through your head, Frankie?
Yeah, well, when I got announced, I was actually at a UFC fight in Toronto. I had no idea they were announcing that. So I was kind of blown away. I had there was rumors of that it was going to happen, but I didn't really know when. So yeah, it's a little, I guess you say it's a little emotional, to get that recognition and be amongst the best of this sport, and it's cool to get that because like I said, I put my heart and soul into this.
Yeah, and I mean, congratulations again, joining such a great list of fighters, and a lot of fighters are always asking me, what is your biggest tip for someone who's looking to become a fighter? What would your tip be, Frankie, for someone who's looking to make it to the UFC or make it into a combat sport?
Just compete as much as possible. Just gotta immerse yourself into this game. Fighting is not a hobby. I mean, like, I'm not saying like there's people that go do jujitsu, there's people that do Muay Thai, they might go to boxing classes and stuff. But to be a fighter and really fight, for a living and do this, it's not a hobby. You gotta live this 100%, and then it's got to be all that's on your mind. You got to be obsessed with it.
100%. And we asked Al Quinta this, and I want to ask you this. Would you let your kids participate in a combat sport like UFC or wrestling?
My kids, all three of my kids wrestle. My two sons wrestle. My daughter actually wrestled a little bit this year as well. They've all done jujitsu. My middle son, he seems like he may want to get into family business, but we're focused on wrestling for now.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, obviously, you had so many memorable fights. Which was one fight in your career that you wanted to have happen? What was your dream fight?
I felt like I fought everybody, and like I said, when I got into this, I never wanted to point. I never was like a name guy. I just wanted to fight the best. So whoever had the title, that's who I was calling out. Um, but maybe looking back and towards the end of my career, they asked, when I was at 35, maybe my last fight. I think I mentioned Dominic Cruz just because based on what he's done, and we were kind of in the same spot in our careers. When I was the 55-pound champion, I believe he was the 35-pound champion, so that could have been a kind of a cool little matchup. And obviously, I got tons of respect for him. He's a stud of a lightweight, one of the best lightweights of our sport. So that's the one that kind of went by the wayside, but really no regrets.
No regrets, and that's how you got to live life. And obviously, I'm interested as a wrestler in college. Did you ever see yourself going to the UFC, or do you see yourself being a wrestler for the rest of your career?
No, I mean, I didn't. UFC just wasn't even really a thing when I was at first in college. Until I mean, I remember it when I remember watching UFC 1 or 2, I was in 7th grade. Then I went to college, and it was kind of became like, high school, college was underground, the UFC. And then Ultimate Fighter, I think maybe that year is like when Randy and Chuck Liddell and Matt Hughes, those are the guys that started getting me thinking about, yeah, maybe I'll give this a shot. And I mean, I graduated college. I was in the union as a plumber. I worked, as a plumber till my third fight in the UFC. So, I wasn't sure that I was going to fight for a living. I wanted to make sure I made enough money before I quit my, union job to fight in the UFC.
Damn. Wow. And obviously, you've had some underdog moments in your career, and obviously that might be one of the biggest ones, being a plumber while grinding your ass off in the UFC. But what was your biggest underdog moment in your fighting career, sir?
I mean, I keep going to it, but I was an 8-1 underdog when I fought BJ the first time. So, I don't think anybody thought I was going to win. I mean, at one point, when I first got announced the fight, I mean, even me, I had some doubts. So I'm sure some of my teammates and friends and families had some doubts. But, I think that might be at the time. I think that was the biggest odds difference in a fight.
Wow. And obviously, going into the ring, we asked Alexei Olenek, and I asked him, do you feel nervous before a fight? And he answered, yes, I feel very nervous. Now, Frankie, do you get nervous before a fight, or are you just locked in, you ready to go, and everything's just blank?
No, I'm definitely nervous. I think everybody. I'm not scared. I'm never scared to lose. I'm not scared to get hurt. I'm not scared of the guy. I'm scared of the situation. I'm scared to lose. I hate losing. I mean, everybody does. So that's what I'm nervous about. I'm nervous that it might not go my way. But you try to tell yourself all positive thoughts and just let me fight to the best of my ability. And when I'm walking out, all the nerves are pretty much gone. I'm locked in at that point. But that whole day, little nerves, little nerves.
I can imagine. And what was your walkout song again?
Kicking the Door by Biggie.
Oh, you're going classic. I love that. Ooh, that is the way to go. And what was it like being in front of thousands and thousands of people doing something you loved? I mean, was that a dream come true?
Yeah, no, yeah, to fight in front of people. I mean, I fought, I used to fight in backyards in front of 5 people. So, to do it in front of, thousands of people is awesome.
Wow, and I love that, and I think I would be shitting my pants if I stepped in a ring. And I mean, shout out to the fighters who just have that mindset to just go in there and win. And obviously, you did win, and that's something you just absolutely did in your career. And what was who's your like dream? Who was your idol growing up in the UFC? Was it like a Randy Couture or a Chuck Liddell, Chuck the Iceman? Who was it?
I mean, when I first got in, I looked up to those guys that wrestled, Matt Hughes
Yeah,
and Randy. Obviously, George St. Pierre was, really, really, he was like the first professional to me. Like he had it figured out, more than anybody. Had the schedule down, the coaches, and and being able to train alongside him was definitely highlighted that.
wow. You trained with George St. Pierre?
We train alongside of each other. Yeah, yeah. We obviously he trained with Henzo Gracie and John Danaher, and I trained over with those guys quite a bit. So yeah, we were in a couple rooms together.
I saw you were also yeah, you were training with the Gracies as well. What was that like training with such a legendary family in the mixed martial arts industry?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like they're kind of the father of this. So to be able to get that close to the beginning, it's just special. And Henzo Gracie is he might be the best Gracie at all of them as far as just the person he is. He's a special individual.
100%. And obviously, shout out to the Gracie family. Now, obviously, we just heard that Jon Bones Jones is possibly returning. Do you think that's going to actually happen?
Oh yeah, I definitely think he's gonna return. I just don't know when against who, but yeah, he's definitely gonna come back for sure.
I would love to see him go against DC. DC come out of retirement and go. Oh, that'd be what I would
Uh-huh.
love.
Then
But
him and Alex Pereira, I think, is still talking about it, so it might be a good one.
really,
Yeah,
ooh,
yeah.
Alex Pereira is a dog too. He's absolutely killing it. Shout out to him. Did you watch UFC 300 by any chance?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
And what did you think of Holloway and Gaethje just going at it? That was dope.
That was epic, man. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. It's like a movie right there. That was amazing.
That was absolutely insane. Which fight are you most excited for coming up?
Um, what fight is coming up?
Would it be that Conor Chandler fight?
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. I think that's an exciting fight. You know, I know Islam and Dustin Poirier are fighting here soon. Um, yeah, I guess just Connor and Chandler, just because the whole build up with the fight and Connor being hurt and coming back. I think that's a pretty exciting one right there.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an electrifying fight. So I'm so ready for that. Now, Frankie, thank you so much for taking your time to come on the podcast. Now, before we go, the floor is yours. Where can we find your podcast, which you're absolutely killing it on? What's your social medias? What's all that? And yeah, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, no, man. Frankie Edgar everywhere for social media, IG, Twitter, all that stuff. And my Champ and the Tramp podcast with me, my Roger Matthews, my co-host, kind of just talk shit, bust balls, and cover a little bit of everything. So yeah, come check me out.
I saw Roger. Roger actually follows us. Funny enough, I think he's an awesome podcaster. You and him are such a great duo on that podcast. And I also saw you guys are working with Carnivore now as well, right?
Yeah, yep. They're one of our sponsors, Carnivore, beef protein, bro. Beef builds muscle, baby.
Right. And is there any codes we can use on Carnivore?
Yeah, we don't do that, but if you go to our links and stuff, it'll put you right to the good stuff.
Put us to the good stuff. Hey, Frankie, thank you again for taking the time to come on the podcast, man. And one more time for the answer, because all he did was answer the challenges and rise up to it. I mean, Mr. Balboa himself, Frankie Edgar. Guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Until next time, guys, the Underdog out. Hey, Frankie.